This is my final. Yes. Okay. In the beginning of the semester, we were told that we needed to come up with a topic for our research paper. As a political science major, anything in politics or dealing with politics, I have a special interest in. This is why I chose to write about DACA recipients. We needed to come up with a question for our research paper so we can get started. In the beginning, I didn't really know a question, but I knew that I wanted to do a research paper on DACA recipients and how they feel about being represented by the different political parties. During the research process throughout the semester, I did not know how much work was actually needed to find the right article for my own research paper. Looking at the author and doing a bit of research on the author was a huge thing I learned in the research process. For example, in one of my secondary research sources I had was this one. This is Sarah Binder. She is the author to one of the sources I use. Sarah Binder is a professor of political science at George Washington University. To me, she is more than credible to write about DACA and anything dealing with politics because she is a political science professor. Another tool or thing we used during our research process was a crap sheet, which stands for current, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. We use the crap sheets on our secondary sources. For current, we want to see how current it is, if it's old, if it's new, did it just come out, how long has it been out. For relevance, we want to know, is it really all about your topic? Is it really relevant? And for authority, is the author credible? Like I just said with Sarah Binder, she is a political science professor, so she is credible. That's what the crap sheet was made for, the authority part. Accuracy, we want to know how reliable it is. Does the links work? Has it been reviewed? Those types of things for accuracy. And for purpose, what is the sole purpose of the article? During our research process, we also did a little comparison chart. Here, I compared different things between each article that I use, and I have 4 articles here. Some had the same thing as other articles, so it helped me out with my research process. Also, we used a critique for our research. We critiqued our own research, got the major claims, supported evidence. Also, a big thing in our research was finding the gaps of our secondary sources. And my secondary sources and the articles I found, my gap was not getting the perspective of an actual DACA recipient. In all my articles, it talked about what the senators want, what the congressmen wanted, what other people wanted, but not how DACA recipients felt about it. The actual people that should be warned. They didn't have their own input, their own voice in these articles. So that was one of my gaps that I found. So we came up with a new question after coming up with the gap. And my new question is, how do DACA recipients understand how different political parties represent them? So, with finding out my gap and my question, I took a gap, which is not having this perspective of an actual DACA recipient, into my own hands. And I did an interview on 2 actual DACA recipients. Here is my first one, and I asked them 13 questions, and I got their answers. I did not ask for their names. Their names were protected, as did not want to out any DACA recipient that was afraid. That was not my job to do. My job was to protect them and their identity. And I was thankful that they were able to answer these questions for me. Let's go to the next. Because these questions and interviews really did help me out in developing my research and my primary research, not just my secondary. Here's my second one. I only did 2. Both of them were males. You can see the age difference. One's a 19-year-old and the other one was a 24. So we have 2 different kinds of perspectives on what they feel, but mostly they felt the same about a certain political party that is trying to help them and the other one that is not trying to help them. Learning with your peers. Throughout the semester, we were in groups. Even though much of the feedback didn't come until the end of the semester, the group was still able to communicate with one another on assignments. Being in a group helps a lot of people make new friends and can make the semester a little easier because many can rely on getting help or getting feedback. Close towards the end of the semester, we needed to ask our peers for feedback on our writing. We would ask a specific question so that they would know where we are having our problems in our paper so they can better assist us. So I go back to my student folder and I look for my research paper. In my research paper, I asked a specific question. Let's show I would like some advice on how to keep going with the secondary source discussion. I have not done anything to try to fix it because I'm a little confused. I would like an example paragraph or just to help me continue. How do I continue adding my secondary source? At that time, I was having trouble with my secondary research. I did not know how to start it, continue it. So I'm gonna go to my original. My original secondary research looked like this. I had very little, and I didn't really know how to continue or if I was doing it correctly, so I just asked the question and I got answers from my peers. Shout out to Juan, Julio, and Hugo on how to keep on going. I looked at their feedback, I read it, I thought about it, and the first thing I realized is I need to keep going with my own writing first, and I need to add more of my secondary sources into my writing, and then I can look at their feedback and fix some things that I need to fix after I finished my secondary research part. This is me asking my specific question so I can let my peer that is going to help me out with the feedback know this is where I need help and how can you help me. Also, this is where I asked Bonnie to help me out as well. Thank you. And feedback is not just going through a paper and looking at the grammar issues that it has with it, because if we don't ask specific questions to our peers usually just go for the grammar. Oh, this word has to be there, this sentence needs to be revised, this paragraph needs to be revised. We need to ask specific questions to get to our specific answer in order for us to develop our actual paper. Peer feedback process, like I said, I was really stuck on my secondary research part. It was not until I looked at my peer feedback that I was able to actually understand that I needed to keep going with my secondary research and continue writing out and adding more of my secondary sources into my paper, because having it like this one paragraph of secondary research is not enough. That is not enough. To having it like this now, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs about my secondary research and how I developed it, is a lot better. And it's because of my peers that gave me feedback. And also, I think it's really important to be honest when giving feedback, because that person that you're providing the feedback for is going to take that and it's going to use that to their paper. So if you're not being really honest and with your feedback, then you're just going to hurt another person who is already hurting because they want feedback on where they are struggling. Coming into this class, I had knew from the previous 1301 class that feedback was really important. I had learned that don't go and start crossing out sentences or start writing all over someone's paper, because it's not polite, it's really rude to do that. Just to give them feedback on the side of the margin. And this was a little different because in this class we did everything on Word Online, which is through our email or OneDrive, and we were able to type out our comments and get answers to our questions that we had. So I think this really helped me a lot because I could develop a better understanding than actually having someone come and just write all over my paper because they found a grammar issue. Also, in my research process, I really didn't know how to do research. I didn't really know that the author was very important, because I would just look at what the author would write. To me, 1 year ago, what the author wrote, if it sounded great, then I could use it. Now I'm looking at the author to see if that author is credible in writing that topic they're writing about. We don't want some random person that's going to be writing about politics not know anything about politics. We want someone who knows politics to write about politics. You want to be informed. And I can say these techniques that we use throughout the semester, the crap sheets, were really useful and helpful because we got to see it all laid out on our crap sheet, that if it's current, we could use it. If it's relevant, we should use it. It kind of was like a checkbox. Yes, check if it's current, check if it's relevant, check if it's reliable, check the author, check the purpose, who's gonna read it and why, what's the sole purpose of this whole article, is it going to fit into your secondary research process, and if it does, then that could be potentially your secondary source. And I felt like doing the interviews that I did for my primary research was really good, because I would have never thought of putting interviews that I did into my own research paper. I probably would have looked at other interviews, if there were any, to put in my paper. Also, before I forget, during our project, I did a DACA website, so it works. And with the gap I found in my secondary research, I found out that I didn't get the perspective of DACA recipients, so I made a website that on Wix that did all that. It's called DACA News. It's a blog for the countless number of DACA recipients who want their voice to be heard. Here, I made separate tabs for anyone, DACA recipients, non-DACA recipients, can all chat together in a friendly, positive conversation so that everyone can learn about DACA recipients and how they feel and what they're going through, the fears they have, the hate they have towards Donald Trump because of what he did. Here on DACA News is news article clips that I posted here so that anyone can read and be informed on the latest that is going on. And I put my interviews here on my website just so they can see that I actually did go out, find people, and interview them. So all in all, I think I'm done with my research. My paper is done. My secondary research is done. Primary research is done. So it was great doing this. Good night.